Freedom and flexibility. That's what you want in a healthcare plan. And with Humana's Medicare Advantage PPO plans, you can see any doctor in the country who accepts Medicare, including specialists, with no referrals needed. Plus, you can go in and out of network for the same copay for doctor's visits. Learn more at gethumana.com. Humana, a more human way to healthcare. Humana is a Medicare Advantage PPO organization with a Medicare contract. Enrollment in any Humana plan depends on contract renewal.
Back on the Northland Sports Page, hour number 2, Brian Prudhomme, Dave Cook. That intro music can only mean one thing. LaVelle E. Neal is here once again. Dave Cook, I'm always pumped when LaVelle E. Neal is with us, but given the breaking news of the week, I texted you and said, I'm going to shoot my shot, but I got to imagine he's going to be pretty busy. He wasn't too busy for us. I love that.
No, I agree. That's just amazing. And again, he's not just a writer anymore. He's everything down there, right? He's a columnist. He's involved in all kinds of things, and everything is going on in Minneapolis right now.
I was going to say, we've got quite the smorgasbord of things to talk about, where to start, but let's start by saying good morning, LaVelle E. Neal III, Star Tribune columnist. Always a pleasure to have you. How's your Saturday?
All is well. I'm actually speaking to you live from wild morningscape before their game tonight against Seattle Kraken.
All right, so let's start there because your versatility knows no bounds. This is a 1-0 team, obviously beat their former coach and Dean Evison back on Thursday night. Dean didn't seem to pull any punches about the way he was dismissed and whatnot, but the key is, and I've said it probably 6 times on the show already, most that know more than I do have said, the mediocrity is kind of the theme behind this team, but they're going to be better than you think. I'm all for it. Tell me why that should be true.
Well, if you look at it a couple ways, there's a lot of things have to go right. Like, they can't be as injured as they were a year ago.
Right.
I think Gaudreau, Johansson, Zuccarello and Hartman will all admit that they probably could have done better last year. So individually, those guys have to improve. The young players have to continue to develop. They didn't make any splashy offseason moves, so it's kind of like the Twins who just brought back everybody hopes that they could push forward and get better from within. So, but there's a belief that this team is better, that Matt Boldy's on the verge of a big year, that you got more young guys breaking into the mix like Liam Ogren and Hustadinov, and you got Jesper Wallstedt, part of a weird 3-headed monster in the goal. I don't know how that's going to work during the season. So they think they finally have the penalty kill fixed, which was an issue. I think they were 3rd from the bottom in the league in penalty kill percentage last year, and they think they've got that solved. So all these factors balled up into one. And you probably are looking at a playoff team.
So what's the most important piece out of all the things you just said? Because the penalty kill, I thought on Thursday, still left a little to be desired. The goaltending, 3-headed monster, you described it perfectly in simply saying it was weird. Boldy was the best player on the ice on Thursday. Is that the biggest piece, that Kirill is Batman and finally has a dependable Robin, or is it something else?
Well, I think some of the younger guys have to take a step forward, not just for their own development, but to get the veteran guys to look over their shoulder a little bit, that they could be demoted down the line or so. If Holmgren can make an impact, if Hustadinov is good at center, Marco Rossi, if he improves as much this year as he did from the year before to last year, then he could be a heck of a player. So I think it's up to the young guys to continue to move forward.
If Rossi improves like he did from last year to this year, he's going to be a monster.
Absolutely.
A couple years ago, we panned Billy for signing, the veterans to these longer term contracts with the no trades. But now looking at it, was it maybe the right thing to do? Because you're right about Ogren and Hustadinov, but if we have these guys that they've signed, Zuccarello and whatnot, not here, aren't we just bringing up some AHL guys to fill in the spaces? I mean, was it the right thing to do in hindsight?
I was against it because I thought he was already spending the money that he's going to have when the Parisi and Suter contracts come off the books. But he was also looking at other factors: professionalism, mentorship, and chemistry. Those guys are all a part of the fabric that keeps his team together tightly. And he felt that he was creating an atmosphere that would allow a young player, 1, not to walk on eggshells, and 2, to be themselves, and 3, to develop properly. So they are a means to an end, and that's to get the whole program moving forward by using their experience to show the younger kids the way.
So I want to shift to a team that is playing for a championship from the team that gets treated like they've already won one, even though they haven't, going from the Wild to the Lynx. And the Lynx, for me, it's super interesting. Game 1 was historical for a number of reasons. Obviously, we all hope they finish this. The weird angle for me, LaVelle, is this. During the season, I was frustrated with WNBA fans, and heavy on the air quotes, that all they did was really love Caitlin Clark, and they proclaimed that they were WNBA fans. And I kept saying, you've got the best team in the league in your backyard. Well, now I have to thank Caitlin Clark, because I feel like when the time came, now they're noticing the bandwagon's full.
Yeah, it is. It is. Clark and Angel Reese have brought attention to the league like never before. I think it unsettled some players for two rookies to come in and make the headway. And definitely Caitlin Clark more so than Reese, but Reese in her own way. But I think it rankled some of the veterans about how much of an impact they made coming into the league. That has so many players have been playing 8, 9, 10, 11 years. Cheryl Reeve just said a couple weeks ago, it usually takes 5 or 6 years of playing in this league to, figure out who you are as a player and how you can help teams win.
Right.
But Clark and Reese have been outliers. They've come in and dominated in different ways. I thought Reese was a great athlete at LSU. I thought she would rebound. I didn't think she was going to rebound this much with all the double-doubles she put up, and I was skeptical of her offense, but she found enough offense. Of course, some of those baskets were putting in her own misses.
I was just going to say, you can rebound your own offensive mistakes as well, let's be honest.
Yeah, but she ended up having a really impressive season, and Clark, what can you say about Caitlin Clark? So it's put eyes in the season. Game 1 is already called considered one of the better WNBA games ever.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were talking about it on social media afterwards, and that's what the league needs.
So, LaVelle, the quick follow-up to that is the broadcasting. Like, I'm not one who normally points fingers at broadcasters.
I was going to say, I thought Rich Eisen on the NFL Network was bad, but then we had game 1 of the WNBA Finals.
And it wasn't any better on the radio, right? But Lobo and the play-by-play guy are both New Yorkers, and at times during that game, it was like, oh, yeah, the Lynx scored, but let's talk about this crazy pass that somebody made from one side to the other, and it didn't result in anything, but wow, what a pass. And I'm wondering how you're a pro. You don't have, you're not supposed to have rooting interests. How do you look at broadcasters during games?
Well, I just think what you're alluding to is an example of Minnesota being a flyover country, not being a large market, and people not really paying much attention to the Lynx. Even though they had the second best regular season record and was like one of the top 2 defensive teams in the league, they went during the regular season. They went to New York twice and beat the Liberty in their own house, once in the regular season and once for the Commissioner's Cup final. The odds come out for this series, and New York is like an overwhelming favorite. I was like, have they watched what's gone on this year? Have they seen the Lynx play defense?
Right.
I just thought I just think it's a little New York bias there that they didn't expect the Lynx were going to come in and punch the Liberty in the mouth like they did in game 1 and come back from 18 down and demoralize them with an overtime victory. So now I think they're probably paying a little more attention to Minnesota. And its players. Everybody knew Nafisha Collier was a great player, but Courtney Williams has stepped up to be, the option 1A, option B to Collier now with her scoring ability and her big play ability and her ability to penetrate and run the offense. So people are, I don't know if it just takes one game, but I just think people are looking at Minnesota a little differently after what Thursday's game.
I think you're right, and you mentioned the flyover country angle, and I get it. But the reason why I kind of rolled my eyes at that was because the history of the sport should tell you that you can't do that. When you look at markets, regardless of size, in the WNBA that have won, Minnesota's kind of the gold standard. How quickly we got forgotten, I guess, in that sense.
That's weird, but, the Lynx were winning when there wasn't really a lot of eyes in the league. Let's be honest, they're in the finals now with a chance to be the first franchise to win 5 championships. This is their 7th finals, which is already a record. They're the gold standard of the league, and we'll definitely cement that with a championship in this series. So things have changed, and it would be cool for the Lynx if they can win the title now that the league now has attention like never before.
Yeah, that makes a good point. I hadn't thought of that. So I want to follow up with this because Nafisha Collier is that player. She is that good. But at the same time, she's not to the level yet of the Hall of Fame caliber roster that Cheryl Reeve had with Rebecca Brunson, Lindsay Whalen, Sylvia Fowles, Simone Augustus. But with the more eyes on the league, do you think it's possible? And I didn't even mention Maya Moore, by the way. That's a huge omission by me. Do you think it's possible with more eyes on the league that somebody like Nafisa Collier could eventually get glorified further because more people noticed?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, absolutely. I think that's very possible. I think it's starting to happen now. I mean, she was voted Defensive Player of the Year. She probably was the second best player in the league this year behind A.J. Wilson. And then people know her and respect her game. She went to UConn, so she already has that going for her. And I think this, this is a big year for the league. And for her to have this season, like I said, when there's eyes on the league like never before, and it's a great reflection on her. It's a great reflection on the Lynx, and she also starting up that other basketball league to help women make some bucks during the off season too. So she's going to be in the media spotlight here in this series and beyond.
Speaking of media spotlight, probably time to address the elephant in the room, because I thought the worst thing that could happen to the Twins besides this past September would be overall indifference from whatever they had left of the fan base. And the reason for that was going to be the ownership doesn't care or doesn't have the means to improve them. Then we get the breaking news of Thursday, and most of Minnesota on social media basically had a party. But there's more to this. A sale still needs to happen. It needs to stay local. The poll ads out isn't a bad thing, but is it a great thing? Give me your overall take on this.
I don't know if you can say if it's a great thing. You got to wait and see who ends up buying the team. You have to wait and see if they can find a buyer.
Right.
Arnold Marino put the Angels on the market and pulled them off the market after 5 months. The Nationals were on the market for 2 years, and then the family decided to take it off the market. So they got to find someone who's willing to pay their number. I don't know what their number is. I'm guessing it's going to start at $1.5 billion because that's what the Forbes valuation of the franchise was going into the regular season. But it's only a good thing if you bring in an owner that's going to come in and make the right moves to help push the team over the top. It's like when Carl Pohlad bought the Twins, he hired Andy McPhail, who hired Tom Kelly, and you saw what happened. If the owner is good enough to be a big baseball fan but knows not to be a megalomaniac and find the right people to run baseball operations and give them the resources to put together the best team, then it's a great move. But we just don't know. And the new owner may come in and look at the financial situation, look at the market that the Twins are in, and go, now I see why the Twins only had a $130 million payroll. But you hope they would come in and try to make more of an impact, trying to impress the fan base and win back fans, because that's right now it's a PR issue right now with the Pohleds and the fan base. They've got to, they're going to sell the team now, but I think if they hadn't, they'd have to do something to win back fans.
So knowing that it's purely speculation at this point, are there even names you could drop as possibilities? Because I think I saw Chad Hardman mention the Davis family. I think I've laid out a bunch of Fantasyland situations, and I've said, well, whoever doesn't win the Wolves ownership scenario, give it to them. Let's let the Wolves buy more. What's a realistic possibility?
Yeah, that came up too, that the loser in that could pivot to the Twins. I was told Marty Davis has always wanted to own a sports team, so maybe this is his opportunity. Who knows what else? I don't know how much Mark Lowry cares about baseball, but it could be an option if him and A-Rod don't get ownership of the Wolves. There could be some other local people, Stanley Hubbard, could be someone. Maybe several people form a group to take over the team. And there may be some outside interest, I know the phone was ringing at the Twins offices enough on yesterday for the receptionist to have to call someone and say, how do I proceed with all these inquiries about wanting to buy the team? So there's definitely interest. Who knows? Maybe there's a former player out there who would be interested. If someone like Davis bought the team, I would expect that Joe Mauer and Justin Morneau probably would be minority owners. I don't know how big of a slice, but maybe 3 to 5% or something like that. So it's really interesting going forward here. And like I said, you could be surprised at some of the people who have shown interest in the team so far. And I think there's going to be, I think they got a good shot at selling. The Pohleds have been really calculated when it comes to making business moves. And I don't think they would have put the team in, if they wouldn't be exploring a sale unless they had an idea of who would be interested in buying the team.
I think interesting is the right word, Dave. I have to confess to LaVelle E. Neal III. One of those phone calls at Target Field was me yesterday. I could only offer $5,000, but I took my shot. Go ahead.
Well, and I think the Laurie example is a good one because A-Rod's owned him for quite a while.
Right.
But the question that I have here is, you made a really interesting point about former players. And I'm wondering if that is a way to cement this, having those former players invest is a way to cement this team here, because I think the worst owner is the one that's going to see Nashville, New Orleans, Mexico City, wherever, or Montreal as an option.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the Twins are going anywhere. First of all, they've got another 15 years in their lease at Target Field. Second of all, Target Field is still one of the best ballparks in the league. Thirdly, Fort Myers is a very good spring training facility, so the infrastructure is in place here just to make it easier for a new owner to step in. So I don't foresee how serious is Nashville, how serious is Portland, how serious is Montreal. You know, they're going to have to get stadiums built, and to be honest with you too, owners like expansion fees. They don't like relocation charges.
Yeah.
They like expansion fees. So I think they would prefer that they add teams instead of moving a team.
Of course, we're talking about the Twins being up for sale at a time where we hoped we'd be talking about the Twins being in the postseason. They are not. LaVelle, I want to ask you a couple of different questions, just kind of a two-parter that might get a little long. Number one, what's the biggest reason why the Twins aren't here? Because the fans are going to say, well, it's the ownership they didn't spend. Well, no, because the same roster they put together through September was doing fine and then, hit rock bottom in September. What was the main reason to you? And then who do you got in terms of who's still standing in the postseason?
Well, I just think it was just like a major collapse going down the stretch with injuries, players slumping and not knowing how to slump. Royce Lewis was talking about how he was fatigued the last month of the season. You got to learn how to push through that stuff, especially when the playoffs are on the line. So I think it was a combination of factors that kept the Twins out of the postseason. Personally, I kind of think they were doomed a little bit from the start, because once I found out that the decision to put the team up for sale or to explore a sale was made like a few months ago during the summer, that tells me the family was considering this even before that, which may have fueled some of their decisions to keep the payroll flat. Well, that was their intention. They ended up slashing payroll because the TV deal went haywire. So I think it goes back to there, because after the 2023 season, there should have been a push to add to the roster and give it a better chance to withstand injuries and withstand slumps and make the team effective enough to return to the postseason. That didn't happen, and that's unfortunate for the fan base. As far as who's still standing, man, I really like the Phillies, so I'm kind of bummed out they're no longer in the playoffs. And now you got Mets and Dodgers. You're going to have the winner of today's Detroit-Cleveland game facing the Yankees. There's a path for the Yankees to get back to the World Series, and it could be crazy because either it's going to be New York, L.A., or it's going to be New York, New York. So interesting fact here. I was looking up some numbers here, and I read this, and I couldn't believe it. Since the Yankees last won the World Series, they have spent $3 billion on payroll. I was like, that's crazy.
Wow, that resonates.
That's crazy. How about the notion that money that can't buy you everything?
The ironic part of that is in 40 years, the Pohlads spent the same amount. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I kind of like I hate to say this, but I think I'm starting to like the Yankees' chances of winning.
Well, I'll tell you what, you just made a friend in my mother because she's a dedicated Yankee fan. I want to close with this because, I never let you go without talking about it a little. In the first 2-3 weeks of the season, the entire rookie class of quarterbacks looked terrible. My resident Bears fan, has Caleb Williams figured this out?
He's starting to. We have to see. They're playing a fourth-place schedule, so he's got a lot of games against teams that he can do well against. He just had his second 300-yard passing game, which is a Bears rookie record, for goodness sakes. I tell you how crummy their quarterbacking history has been. So, but I'm saying this is the handling school part of his rookie year. They don't play a division opponent till week 11, so he doesn't have to deal with Ryan Flores' crazy defense. So he'll have time to get some looks and get some experience, and hopefully it'll serve him well going forward.
LaVelle E. Neal III, we're bumping you out with ACDC Money Talks. We love talking to you. We'll see who has the money to buy the Twins. Thank you again for the time on a super busy week.
Yeah, thanks, LaVelle.
All right, appreciate it.
We appreciate you as well. LaVelle E, Neal III with the plethora of happenings with our favorite pro sports teams. That was fun.
That was great. I mean, it's like we've said 100 times, LaVelle, the columnist, is so open to all of the different sports. Like he's there and available, and to be able to visit with them about it, man, it's fun.
Level of knowledge is unbelievable. Whatever LaVelle is selling, I'm buying. Let's play buy or sell next. Northland Sports Page continues. Brian Prudhomme, Dave Cook, stick around. We'll be right back. We love a good buy here on the Northland Sports Page. We won't say goodbye until noon. We've still got buy or sell, and then Vencie Glenn to close the show. Vencie Glenn, courtesy of Arola Architecture Studio, the Drawing Lines segment. That is a sponsored segment. We've got great sponsors for the whole show.
Absolutely. Let's start with Mike Regan at Christensen Group Insurance. Assisted Living Locators. That's www.assistedlivinglocators.org/Duluth. Kraus Heating and Cooling, your carrier, HVAC authorized dealer. Mount Royal Bottle Shop, Ferguson Bath and Kitchen. Blackwoods at their locations on London Road. Tavern on the Hill, in Two Harbors and in Proctor. Arola Architecture Studio. Hoops Brewing. ABS Auto Solutions, Stewart's, Bike Sports and Trophies, Comfort Systems of Duluth, Advantage Emblem Screen Printing, Kohler Toyota, and Kohler Hyundai.
And I do want to add a little something courtesy of Mount Royal Bottle Shop. We've got some sponsorship breaking news.
Oh,
that
here we
doesn't
go.
happen terribly often, but I love when our sponsors work together. And Mount Royal Bottle Shop and Hoops Brewing have decided to do that. At Mount Royal Bottle Shop, you can do it online or you can do delivery or pickup. Mention the promo code RADIO. And you get 10% off all your Hoops products, valid all day, every Saturday. Courtesy of the Northland Sports Page, courtesy of Mount Royal Bottle Shop.
Nice. That's a great way to do it. We're going to start pestering the kids. Hey, now when you're getting us stuff on Saturday, do it this way.
Absolutely. So again, at Mount Royal Bottle Shop all day today, online delivery or pickup. Online is super convenient. But use the promo code RADIO, mention it in the store, or plug it in online. 10% off your Hoops products. You're welcome.
Hashtag college students. This is the way to get the best beer.
Absolutely. So there's your beer go-to for the day. We already heard from Mr. Go-To himself, Dave Hoops. Also heard from Topher Davis, and we heard from LaVelle E, Neal III. Now you're going to hear from us for a bit. Love it or hate it. Here we go. We're going to play buy or sell. This is how the game works in case you're new to it. Even if you're not, it's still how the game works. I'm going to give a statement for each of the four major sports leagues, NBA, NHL, MLB, NFL. Dave agrees with my statement. He's going to say buy, and he's going to tell me why. If he disagrees, he's going to say sell, and he's going to tell me why. Dave has two responsibilities. He does wonderfully. One is piping hot takes. Two, and this is usually the more challenging, determining the order in which we play by naming the league.
The league, not the team.
Yes.
All right, let's go with the one that's most interesting right now, and that is Major League Baseball.
All right, that's debatable, but I like your style. Major League Baseball, buy or sell this. The American League Central obviously had success this postseason. Everybody who made it moved up at least a series. Cleveland got a bye. They may get there if they win today in Game 5 against Detroit. Detroit obviously got this far. Kansas City won a series before the Evil Empire got in their way. Buy or sell that success from the other teams in the American League Central this year means trouble for the Twins next year and beyond.
That's an interesting question because 2 out of 3 is bad in this case.
Meatloaf. Anti-Meatloaf.
I'm going to do the opposite of Meatloaf, though, because I think that what we're seeing out of Kansas City and Detroit is bad news for the Twins. But I know I say this every year, and they're in there all the time, I just don't see how Cleveland's Punch and Judy and ground ball pitching staff, their success does anything to the Twins because they've been at the top of the league, and the Twins have been at the top of the league for quite a while. And these other two teams haven't been, and now they're starting to climb. They're the problem.
So I'm going to sell that it's trouble for the Twins because I'm a watch-your-own-bobber guy, and I still look at what the Twins were doing. And they had to have an epic collapse in September to miss the playoffs. But not only did they need that, they needed an epic surge from the Detroit Tigers. Now, I do agree with you. I think the Tigers are going to be around a while because this young core figured it out without question. And Kansas City's got some good pieces. I'm not sold on Seth Lugo being able to do this on the mound annually. Don't get me wrong. But the Twins, and it's going to sound like I've revved up the excuse factor, and maybe I have, I don't think they're going to be that banged up consistently.
Right.
I don't think they're going to win 30% of their games for an entire month consistently. I don't think that the Pohlads are going to be around for much longer, and if they are given some resources, they should get much better. I'm not going to peg this whole collapse on bad luck. There were bad decisions, but now, like LaVelle said, if there were things going on behind closed doors that really ruined the morale of this team, I'm not going to say it's not the Twins' fault. It absolutely was. But I just don't think it can happen again. And this team, got suddenly so bad, there is a fluke factor. But are they going to be competed with a lot more by the rest of the division, not called the White Sox?
Yes.
100% yes.
Yep, I agree with that.
Because it was looking like until mid-August, I was going to hit you with, hey, do you remember when everybody said the Tigers were going to be good? Okay. But now they really are. So, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And unfortunately, the Twins didn't finish at all.
They did not. Well, they did finish, but
thankfully
stumbling.
they're finished because
Right.
nobody wanted to watch it
Exactly.
anymore.
All right, so let's go to the bye team. Let's go to the National Football League.
All right, the Vikings are on a bye. The Vikings are perfect so far this season. The NFL trade deadline doesn't nearly get the fanfare that the baseball one does, but it is getting discussed. And people have already said the Vikings need to add something. They need to go all in. This is the ideal scenario for this team. So simply buy or sell that you want the Minnesota Vikings to go, quote, all in at the NFL trade deadline.
I'm going to sell tentatively. This is the layaway sell because depends on who they go get.
Right.
I mean, if Dexter Lawrence becomes available, you go all in. But do you go all in for Nick Chubb? I guess I don't see that, even though without Aaron Jones, we saw what the running attack looks like. But are you sending Cleveland number one for Nick Chubb? I sure hope not. But if the Giants call and say, hey, a first round this year and next year and Dexter Lawrence is yours, I got to think strongly about that.
So I'm going to sell barely too, and my reasons are a little bit more, superstitious. I'm a little stitious, maybe not superstitious, but superstitious for me because, again, this team is perfect. You look at deadline acquisitions, and it's good teams looking to get great. Now, I flinch a little bit as I call the Vikings great, but their record is perfect. And the defense is kind of the straw that stirs the drink. Dexter Lawrence is a nice player. I get it. But are you bringing any different personality or any different fit into a defense that really seems to have each other figured out? I mean, you mentioned Jihad Ward. Nobody knew who that was until 3 weeks ago.
And Aaron Rodgers, we know that because he said that to him.
Grugier Hill. I didn't know how to pronounce the name correctly until a couple weeks ago. You're getting contributions from players you didn't expect.
I agree.
Could you get better pieces? Probably, but do they fit is the question. And then the other piece, you already said it. What does all in mean? If Aaron Jones is out for several weeks, you need a running back because you don't have not only a good one, you don't have enough on the roster to begin with. So, again, if Aaron Jones is out for several weeks, you need to make some sort of move. You probably need help on the interior offensive line. We addressed this in segment 1. If you pick up a guard, is that going all in? I don't know.
Yeah, and the vultures are going to start swooping. You're going to get these teams that don't have anything left to play for, and they're going to come and offer their backup running back because their number one running back is pretty good. And what do the Vikes do? Do they trade a fifth for a guy?
Well, and that's the other thing. What can you get for the limited number of picks we have to deal with?
Correct.
And nobody trusts Kwesi with picks anyway.
Well, he'll trade back with it.
All right, 2 down, 2 to go.
All right, let's go with the Wolves. Let's go and see. I did it. Let's
he
go
was
with the
doing
National
so well.
Basketball Association.
You've meatloafed the segment. You've done 2 out of 3 so far.
Man.
All right, well, this one's kind of a silly one anyway because I saw the article online and I couldn't believe what I was reading, but apparently the NBA has done this before. So the NBA has a Hall of Fame class coming up.
Yeah.
And going in, stay with me, Jack Nicholson, Billy Crystal, and Spike Lee, because the NBA apparently has a superfan chapter to their Hall of Fame. Buy or sell that this is a good thing?
Well, 1, it's a dumb thing.
Yes,
2,
it is.
It's already been done, Brian. And you know who's got that Hall of Fame that has all the goofy guys on the side? The WWE. Like you can get hold on.
Well, the Academy Awards have a museum too.
I know what you
I've
say,
been there.
but you're telling me the NBA is putting people that got nothing to do with it. I believe Donald Trump is in the WWE Hall of Fame, and
the USFL.
Well, but that's different. Their Hall of Fame is very small.
There's 3 of them.
But just don't.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
When does a rainbow hair guy with John 3:16 get in?
Yeah,
That's
I'm
my
gonna
question.
sell. Well, Ricky Henderson wouldn't want him in because Ricky wouldn't hit 316. He hit at least 320.
Right, exactly.
But I'm gonna sell that this is a good thing too. I mean, I understand it. It generates a little more interest, and let's be honest.
Do you understand this?
I do, because here's why. The Knicks have been so bad, but still at the forefront of media attention. Again, you're shaking your head at me. I'm not saying I like it. I understand it for this reason. The Knicks have been so bad, but still at the forefront because they're New York. But when you talk about the Knicks, what do you talk about? You don't talk about, except for Jalen Brunson, for NBA nerds like us, you don't talk about any of their players for the last 10 years. You talk about the building, because Madison Square Garden is a big deal. And you talk about Spike doing God knows what courtside. The Lakers, pre-LeBron for a while, weren't very good. So what do you talk about when you go to Staples Center? Who you might see. Who are you going to see first? Jack. So again, this is dumb. I'm not championing it.
You know what's cool?
But I understand it a little.
Karl Anthony Towns' dad now is going to be in Madison Square Garden, and he's really animated and stuff. I'm guessing second ballot Hall of Fame. He won't get in the first time.
Well, here's the fun part.
What about no T-shirt guy with Kevin Garnett's number who danced in the
that's
steps?
the thing. Here's the fun part. Who the heck would go from the Target Center? Because Glenn sits like he's disinterested in the same chair every night. A-Rod's been there for a while, but not long enough. Who's going to go? The lady, 2 years ago that stapled herself to the court a couple times?
The what's her name? Garnett's friends. The music.
Jimmy Jam?
Yeah, I mean, why not? This is dumb.
Right. It's silly. Like I said, I only brought it up so we could have a little bit of fun with it.
Hoops could go in for Major League Baseball then.
I couldn't believe that I was seeing this article and that it was a real thing.
Nope. That's I'll sell that.
So there's
hardcore.
your WWE chapter of the 4 majors here on the Northland Sports page today.
Yeah. Well, let's just Brian, what's even left? That
You've
just
got one
threw
left.
me off. The National Hockey League.
The NHL is left, yes. And Topher Davis kind of touched on this. The Minnesota Wild are 1-0, hoping to make it 2 tonight. 80 games left after today. I don't know what this team is going to do. I want to be positive because I want to be that way towards all of my Minnesota teams. So buy or sell this. A team whose expectations we're really not sure of. Can early success be good enough to carry over?
Sure. This goes to our conversations about you can't win a tournament in the first week, but you certainly could lose it. So last year, Gus, I believe, shut down Florida, who had just been in the Stanley Cups in Game 1, and we were all in, and then they lost their next 4. So success in one game means nothing. After 5, 6, if they're doing like the Vikings are doing and have that run in them and we see the strengths, fast start can certainly help because there's faith then.
I'm going to buy too, and I'm going to go back to what you and LaVelle said on repeat, basically during LaVelle's segment. We talked about what? Yes, we've got the veterans on the weird contracts, but you guys said how many strides do the young guys need to make? What do young guys need? Confidence. What does an early start that's positive do? Builds that. It might mean that come April, they have no idea what they're doing playing in important games, but if you're confident and young, you might be able to ride this past Christmas.
I'm sorry, Brian. Is the San Diego Chicken in the Hall of Fame? Because
you're still hung up on that?
Well, that's so dumb. The argument is just, is Max Patkin for the older people in the Hall of Fame because when Cleveland would get a hit, he'd fall over in the first base box.
How many does Billy Crystal get to go in? Isn't he also the most famous Yankee fan over recent years as well?
I'm bang, bang, bang. This is such.
Prince should get in posthumously. He had the suite above me when I had season tickets at the Metrodome for the Vikes.
Max of desperation is what that does. Wow, that's dumb.
All right, so I've gotten in Dave Cook's head. You know who else does that on the regular basis? Vencie Glenn. He gets in both of our heads. He's going to finish the show. It's the Drawing Line segment, courtesy of Arola Architecture Studio. Yikes. Yeah, we did definitely play some fan ball. Vencie would have hung up by now, but we're going to call him next. Stick around. We'll be right back. That's another edition of Buy or Sell. This is another edition of the Northland Sports page. We're about to close it out. We'll be right back.
Freedom and flexibility. That's what you want in a healthcare plan. And with Humana's Medicare Advantage PPO plans, you can see any doctor in the country who accepts Medicare, including specialists, with no referrals needed. Plus, you can go in and out of network for the same copay for doctor's visits. Learn more at gethumana.com. Humana, a more human way to healthcare. Humana is a Medicare Advantage PPO organization with a Medicare contract. Enrollment in any Humana plan depends on contract renewal.
That is the safety dance. We are back here on the Northland Sports page. That means Vencie Glenn is here. That's the Drawing Line segment. I'm going to tell you that Dave Cook is going to tell you who's responsible for that segment because he's going to tell you about all of our sponsors.
Absolutely. Let's start with Arola Architecture Studio. Drawing Lines with Ryan is one of our longest segments and, of course, our longest advertiser. Hoops Brewing, ABS Auto Solutions, Stewart's Bike Sports and Trophies, Comfort Systems of Duluth, Advantage Implement Screen Printing, Kohler Toyota and Kohler Hyundai, Mike Regan at Christensen Group Insurance, Assisted Living Locators. You can reach them at www.assistedlivinglocators.org/Duluth. Kraus Heating and Cooling, your Carrier HVAC authorized dealer. Mountain Royal Bottle Shop. Brian, you were talking just a second ago about the deal. What's the deal again?
Absolutely. If you go into Mount Royal Bottle Shop today or if you go online at mountroyalbottleshop.org, You enter the promo HOOPS or mention it in the show. Enter the promo radio, and HOOPS is in conjunction with Mount Royal Bottle Shop. Get 10% off your HOOPS products thanks to us, and thank you to our sponsors.
Absolutely. Then we go to Ferguson, Bath and Kitchen, and finally the Blackwoods Group, including their locations on London Road, Tavern on the Hill, in Two Harbors, and in Proctor.
So with that, we bring in Vencie Glenn as part of our Drawing Line segment once again this week. The Vikings have the week off. Vencie does not. Now, Dave Cook, I'm going to say good morning to Vencie and get him on the air, but I'm going to let you have the first question because last week you had to split and get to St. Scholastica's homecoming game. I was able to show up a little bit after you. So Vencie and I got to chat, and we ended the segment by laughing because Vencie couldn't believe that he agreed with me on about 4 consecutive things. So 2-5 and I are on great terms as always, but you and Vencie have a little catching up to do. So I'll just start with this. Vencie, good morning, and I'll pass you to Dave.
All right,
Good
Vince.
morning. Glad you made it back, Cookie. I took it personally you're going to leave right before I come on.
Yeah, notice I'm always in your corner, Vencie. Don't forget that. One of us is always here for you.
If it helps, the college team came back and won in ridiculous fashion.
That was
for
because their
homecoming.
web play-by-play guy. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly right. Hey, Vencie, it was really interesting. I was in a meeting earlier in the week in a small school in the area, and I got a phone call asking me to come back because one of the kids I was talking to was having a bad time of it. Needed a male voice to come in and talk about stuff. And about 2 months ago, you were talking about a football mentor of yours, Bobby Turner. And I want to know what made Bobby Turner special and what makes a guy like Bobby Turner impact a player like you, Vencie.
Oh, that's a great question,
See,
man.
I told you.
See, he needed a week to prepare. A week's worth of preparation paid off. Go for it, 2-5.
But for me, outside of my dad and, maybe my high school coach, who really wasn't a mentor, but, you just always listen to older people. That's the way you would talk back then. But when I got to college and being a 17-year-old kid, it was a shock as to that somebody outside my family or I didn't know personally could take an interest in you. And expose your character weaknesses without exposing them. In other words, you grow as a young man, but you have faults. Everybody has faults, but you don't quite know exactly what your faults are because you haven't been out in the world and things like that. You haven't had a lot of different situations come before you. And so when I went to college and he started getting on me about a lot of things that I thought were mundane and minute things, but they were the little things that make you better and great because you didn't have no problem doing it. People say, oh, I don't want to take out the trash. It ain't like it's hard to take the trash out and throw it in the bin. You just think that your time is worth more than just doing something like that. But once you just start taking it out, like till this day, I still take out the trash. It becomes part of you and your DNA. So you learn how to build your DNA as a young man and what works for you and what doesn't work for you. And so he taught me what will work for me if I open up my eyes and was able to see that, hey, there's another way of doing things in life. It's not just one way. And that helped me evolve in football and learning football in a whole different light than I probably would have if he wasn't there.
I love that answer. There's no good way to segue off it, so I'm not even going to try. I'm just going to shift to the Vikings on a bye week. Vencie, a question that I had during segment 1, and I said, well, I'm going to ask it, but Vencie may ridicule me, but here goes nothing. The bye week, how is it spent, and is it spent differently for a 5-0 team versus if they were 1-4? What I mean by that is, are they still working to right some wrongs if they're struggling? Or is it just, this is your bye week, get away from the game? How do different teams spend it, do you think?
It's not a team thing. It's your week. You're an employee for an organization. So if the boss says if I worked at IBM and say the building's closed, everybody got a week off, fully paid, man, don't nobody care what you do. You might ask a couple of your friends what you're doing, all that. But, man, it's your bye week. You go live your life because you still have family's obligations and other obligations that you may have. Me, I was on the first thing smoking back to San Diego every bye week I had once I left the Chargers. Oh, you give me a day and a half to come home? I'm coming home. So everybody did it in a different way, and it didn't matter. Now, if I took it like later in the season, if I was there and we got it in November or something, I might look at it differently depending on how my body felt and things like that. I might need to stay here and get treatment. So it's all based off where you are in that season and how mentally you're prepared or not prepared.
So I want to piggyback the two topics together because we just talk about how a bye week should be spent, but we also were just talking about mentorship. There are some young players where you might be concerned about what they're going to do with their free time. Are there guys that assume mentorship bye week to make sure that they mind their P's and Q's, so to speak?
Well, I think it's twofold question. Another good question. I think the teams that are winning, I think the young guys have already bought into the older guys and saying, "Hey, man, I'm gonna be professional. This is fun. When it's fun, this is good. I like this." And then you have teams that are losing and disarray. That a lot of guys like, "Man, I'm going with the homies." Other people, I'm gonna spend time with my family. Other people say, "Man, I'm just gonna do whatever." So I really depend. I think it depends on the character of the organization as a whole and who's your leaders on your team.
Say, Vince, we talked about the Vikings free agent class a little bit earlier, and we talked about how, you can list 8-9 guys that came here and have made a difference, right? And I'm wondering from a player's point of view, and you've been in this situation, what goes into making a decision when it comes to, looking at the different teams or offering you a different amount of money? Is it simply money, or what else do you look for?
There are a lot of guys, Dave, to be honest, that want to win championships in football. I know we always highlight the quarterbacks and the money, the running backs and the money, the wide receivers and the money, and maybe one defensive player getting paid. Mm-hmm. But it's never a big thing when a defensive player wants to get paid. But they always got problems about paying defensive players. Mm-hmm. So when you go and you go places, first of all, you look at the coach, who you're going to be under.
Sure.
Has he been successful? Do you like his style of aggressiveness? Some players like to be on aggressive defenses. Some players like to be on passive defenses. It depends on your style of play. Sure. I like aggression. So it was good to be able to pick, Tony Dungy and come and be under him. But you want to go where guys are known for winning, and guys that play hard, and teams that play hard. You've been in the league. So you probably want to go somewhere where they're professional and you have a chance to win a championship because your window is small.
Vencie, because of the bye week, we don't have a game to look ahead to, but it allows me to look back. And last Saturday when you and I chatted, you said Aaron Rodgers is terrified right now because of what that Brian Flores defense could do to him. The defense won the game, played an impact, and then lo and behold, the Jets make a coaching change. And everybody says, well, the ownership made the decision, Aaron Rodgers didn't. But everybody on the outside kind of says, yeah, okay, whatever you say. Did Aaron Rodgers get another coach fired?
Man, Aaron Rodgers is right behind that dude, number 8, that used to be in Minnesota in my book on players I'm not too fond of.
It must be the jersey number because Rodgers is 8 now, too.
He's been selfish. He's always been that guy. He hadn't won a championship in years. He dictates everything. He got Mike McCarthy out of there. He ain't happy with nobody. You know what I'm saying? It ain't never his fault. Here's this guy that says, I want to be in New York. I want to be the leader. Doesn't show up at mandatory meetings and all this. He's just all over the map. And he's older, and I don't care. You get older, you get scared. Them young guys coming out, and they don't see you like they would respect to Tom Brady. Because you're not winning on a consistent basis and doing the things you need to win championships like a Tom Brady. So you don't scare me. Yeah, you got great attributes, but you're no fear. If we play defense the way we're capable of, it's just another guy throwing the ball.
Is Aaron Rodgers in danger of being?
He got that guy fired. Absolutely.
All right, fair enough. That's a good blunt answer to the question. I'm going to give you another one with a blunt answer maybe required for Aaron Rodgers. If he continues to play for, say, another year or two after this in New York, Aaron Rodgers is going to the Hall of Fame, has a tremendous resume. But is he about to risk being remembered as a guy who just hung on too long? Because there are players like that too.
In this day and age, it's all about, hey, are you still getting clicks on your likes and dislikes? You know what I'm saying? It's all marketing. It's the entertainment world now in sports. It's all about entertainment. How do we keep our name relevant and in the news cycle and get people talking about us all. It's part of the game. Jerry Jones is an expert at it.
Yeah, he is.
They ain't winning. It's just the way it is. So he does that to stay relevant because I think when he leaves football, he's kind of going to find out how irrelevant he really is because people move on, the world moves on. We don't talk about Elway no more and all the great ones, Montana's, and then unless it comes up in a specific conversation.
I was going to say, it might come up on this show, but that's about it. You're right.
Yeah. So I think he's going to hold on because he's going to try to keep telling everybody he's great. And I'm like, and everybody's watching, them days are behind you. And I think the Jets will make a move and somebody might grab him for a year. But I don't think he's going to be there much longer, especially if he don't win, because now you got all your players don't believe in him. That's not good either.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. It sounds to me, Dave Cook, like as long as Pat McAfee exists, Aaron Rodgers might be allowed to exist. You had the first question. I'm going to give you the last one, too.
All right. So, Vencie, last night we did a high school football game, and they ran the veer, and they ran it to perfection. And I'm wondering, as a secondary player, and you've had a chance to see a plethora of offenses, which from spreads to, I'm sure, some basic running attack. And I'm wondering from a safety's point of view, one, what's the most difficult kind of offense to play? And, looking into a backfield or trying to figure out what they're going to do next. I know you've watched a lot of film, but what's the things you have to make quick decisions on just basically on what you see?
Man, y'all got great questions today. Here's a good one, Cookie. I'm glad you brought that up. This is a prime example of what you're speaking of. It's not about what the offense is doing. Offense going to do all kind of things to be great. Man, give me a defensive coordinator to put us in a position to stop what they doing. Alabama Crimson Tide ain't stopped nobody in 2 weeks, man. That's my team.
That's true.
And I'm like, man, when are you going to put the players in the defense to stop them? You can't just keep doing the same thing and think a guy going to stand up and make a play when it's not working. You have to have a coach that can put you in positions to make plays and to counter what the offenses are doing. And then that's why the Brewers and some of these coordinators are so good because they give their players opportunities to make plays, and they just don't have a defense where guys can just run up and down the field.
That's a great answer, and the passion was easy to be heard, and the fun in this segment was easy to be heard. It always is. Let's do it again next Saturday. Vencie Glenn, we appreciate you. Have a good weekend, 2-5.
Take care, guys. Glad you're back, Cookie.
Thanks, Vencie. We'll talk to you soon.
That is our guy, Vencie Glenn. That is a show. That was the Drawing Line segment that closes the show. Dave Cook, this one flew by.
This one absolutely flew by. Thank you. We had great guests, Brian. Thank you very much for hooking us up. And yeah.
Always a good time. Thank you to Dave Hoops. Thank you to Topher Davis. Thank you to LaVelle E, Neal III. Thank you very much to Vencie Glenn. Thank you, Northland. Thank you, Minnesota, for one heck of a news-making week in the world of sports. We tried to cover it as best we could. We do it every weekend. We're back next Saturday. You better be too. Have a great weekend. It's a bye week, but Skol. Have a good one.